Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive, and I am taking the Maryland Crab Cake Tour back out on the road. 16 different Crab Cake Tour stops this summer, including our 27th anniversary, brought to you by our friends at Curio Wellness. We're going to be out the entire month of August celebrating 27 of my favorite meals in 27 days. But before there, we got a lot of crab cakes to get. We're going to be at Fadley's next Friday on the 13th because I don't believe in unluck or lucky. Luke Jones will be lucky enough to be joining me, and the Angels will be in town. I will have scratch-offs from the Maryland Lottery, the Back to the Future scratch-offs. I've been giving those away. I did have a $5 winner that was nice enough to text me over the weekend from our Greenmount Station pursuits last week. We're also getting to Reader's Crab House up in Reisterstown. We're going to be at the Y in Randallstown at the pool there Juneteenth week. I'm really looking forward to that. That's on the 17th. And then into July, we're going to be at 1623 Brewing, and also the new location. We're going to be in Timonium at Costas, the new Costas. No crabs, only crab cakes in the grandstand there. We'll be doing that with Johnny O. Some Congressman Johnny Oshinsky of the East Side doing that at Costas, not the Dundalk Costas. There's now a Timonium Costas. I mean, who knew? There's going to be a Fadley's in Catonsville soon. This guy knows East Side, West Side. He's been here a long, long time. He is a former newspaper editor right around when I got out of the business. He's also worked in PR and lobbying and all sorts of things. He is now the executive director at the Baltimore Jewish Council. He is a repeat offender here on this here program of Baltimore Positive. We've had him on at various points through the years. But Howard Libit, I want to, I would have you on about baseball, but baseball, we'll get to that momentarily. But the anti-Semitism piece that I wanted to bring you on, and I know we have discussed this several different times. The last couple of weeks, specifically on my social media, I put some Venezuelan content up because I am Venezuelan and a Venezuelan background. When my son said to me a couple of weeks ago, he lives in the east side of town in what is now an all Hispanic neighborhood that was all Archie Bunker's very, very white racist Dundalk in the 1970s. When I lived there, it's now all people of my background of Central American and Hispanic background. And my son said to me, Howard, that the people in the neighborhood live like Anne Frank.
Right.
It kind of startled me. And he's like, everybody's shades are pulled down. Everybody's Hispanic. And so I put a piece up about Venezuelans and one specific Venezuelan young activist who was jailed. The New York Times wrote about that last week. And someone came on and said, why don't you do more on anti-Semitism? And I said, I put an anti-Nazi thing up on my page. Facebook has pulled 3 or 4 of them down. Pulled one of them down specifically with the Volkswagen postings the day that Musk put the Teslas out in front of the White House with whatever you want to call the current president. So Howard, I just want to say I feel like I've been pretty active, and anyone that knows me knows how I feel. I toured the Anne Frank house last year, and it ended my Amsterdam experience for a good period of time and then days thereafter. I want to give you some oxygen for what you're doing here locally. I've been in every synagogue in the city, I think, at one point or another, several recently. I could sit here and say, I have Jewish friends. Of course I do. Business owners and all sorts of, like, I want to do whatever my part is. And I wanted to start with you and just saying, this is all of this hatred is completely unacceptable. It sort of starts at the top with 75 million people voting for someone that is sort of allowed it to be okay to be rude, let alone awful things. And what's happened the last couple of weeks here, it's sickened me. And I want to bring you on and I want to talk about whatever I can do, whatever we can do to help. That's all. I want to help.
I mean, I think too, you go to the attempted firebombing of the Pennsylvania governor's house
Oh,
over Passover in April, and then you have this awful shooting outside the Jewish Museum in D.C., who are people who are attending a Jewish American Heritage
beautiful young couple
event.
too, right? Yeah.
Young couple, wonderful couple, and like the kind of event where I've gone to those kinds of events in DC, and one of my staff members was invited to go and didn't just because her back was bothering her and she didn't feel like, schlepping down to DC. And then this event this March, this past Sunday where these people are peacefully marching for the release of the hostages, no other agenda beyond that. And some guy literally tries to burn them alive. I it, it I could still have trouble getting my mind wrapped around that, which is why like
Well, we're
there's been
good people.
similar.
Envisioning this kind of hatred is really anti anything we can be associated with, you know?
Absolutely, and I got to be clear. Like, I respect those people who are out there protesting the actions of the Israeli government and wanting, to protect Palestinians' rights. I I may agree with them. I may disagree with them. Totally respect it. But I think my worry is some of these protests, and we've seen it. The level of violent rhetoric has picked up. And when you're talking, when you say things like death to Israel or kill the Jews or things like that, there are, people on the extremes who take that literally. And I think we all need to look in the mirror and look at and think about the type of rhetoric we're using and tone it down because unfortunately, violent rhetoric can produce violence among some people, even if most of the people there have no intention of it being violent. We've created a culture where we just say things more aggressively and more violently than we ever have, and that really worries me. We've had since October of 23 a similar march to what they've had in Boulder, Colorado, and most weeks there's 30 or 35 people who show up at the same synagogue every Sunday morning at 9, and they take like a 1 mile march around the neighborhood with signs and calling for the release of the hostages. It's their dedication. It's making sure the hostages won't be forgotten. That suddenly becomes scarier when you see an event like Colorado, like it could have happened here. We're going to turn out in big numbers to support them, to support that march and show we're not going to be intimidated. We can't be. I keep hearing from people, is it safe to go to a Jewish event, whether it's inside or outside? And we can't let a few the crazy violence stop us. We just as a society we can't, whether it's the Jewish community or the Latino community or the Black community or any of them. All of these events, we have to make sure we have the level of security to make sure we are safe and that we feel safe.
Howard Libit is my guest. He is a multiple time guest here. He's comes from the journalism space and the editor. And I've with the death of Jim Henneman, I've had so many media buddies on the last couple of weeks, and I was just you're a little younger than me. You came along maybe like a year after I left the Sun, or the same. I left in early '92. I think you
Yeah,
came.
I got there in summer of 94.
Okay, so you were 2.5 years behind me.
Yeah, a couple years
I,
behind
I
you.
would just say this, and you were a young man when you got there. I was a young man when I left, right? And I would say the ability to be a journalist and to have the background and these grown-ups, all of these people are older than me now. They're all here, and I've done what I've done with my life. But I said I couldn't have done any of it without the who, why, what, when, where, and I quite frankly call it I had bullshit detectors around me every minute of my life as a young man to know what was right, what was wrong, what was fact, what was fiction, what was truth, and what was a lie, and how to suss that out.
Work on how to work on a deadline and write clearly on a deadline so that people can understand. All of that is just
And
so,
how to communicate, but that's
yeah,
beyond being a writer and all that. I'm talking about the things I was writing. Not
yeah.
prose and commas and which takes the comma and that doesn't and like that. I'm talking about being able to put something with a byline on it and say this is true because I wrote it and it's my father's reading it and my audience is reading it. It has to be true because it has my name on it. And that has served me so well, especially as I've gotten older.
And
For
that
everyone,
accuracy too, like
just
whether you're
being
writing
correct.
if you're writing a high school sports story, like you want to make sure you get that kid's first name right because that may be the only time they appear in the paper, and you don't want to get their, you don't want to misspell their name or give them the wrong first name or mix them up. It's the same thing with writing even a simple obituary. It's
Attention
the
to
last
detail,
time.
Howard.
It's got
Attention
to
to
be right.
detail, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to have attention to detail what you do as the executive director at the Baltimore Jewish Council. Familiar with the Associated? I mean, familiar with events. I'm obviously familiar with some of the things you do. But if you pin me down and offer me $1 million and say, answer exactly what we do at the Baltimore Jew. I don't think I could do that. So I want to give you the oxygen to let people know what you do. There's a whole, I mean, on your website, there's a whole thing on anti-Semitism. This is at the core, and I think the last time I had you on, maybe after Pittsburgh and what happened up there years ago, that this is one of the many, many, many things you do.
Yeah, I don't think I told this story last time, but if I did, it's been a while. Like when I started, so I started in this position 9 years ago. And just before I started, the board leadership had kind of identified the priority areas to be working in. And they, Israel education advocacy, we do Holocaust education and commemorance and run a survivor speakers bureau and do a lot there.
You speak
Government
matter of
relations.
factly, but this is all a lot of stuff,
That's a
man.
lot of stuff. Government
Yeah.
relations, we do on behalf of the Jewish community at the state, local, the federal level. We do interfaith relations. What wasn't on the list back before, right when I started, was like anti-Semitism. I mean, yes, it was out there, and yes, it was like when something came up, we would deal with it. But it wasn't such an all-consuming issue that like we needed our own staff person or we needed to make it a priority because like anti-Semitism wasn't solved, but it wasn't like it was. And
Well,
then
we weren't
suddenly,
having people murdered in the streets, is
yeah,
what we're
yeah,
seeing
or
right now.
like
Yes.
really 2017 and the march in Charlottesville kind of really set things off and kind of created that whole environment. And then we could tick off the things: the Pittsburgh Tree of Life shooting, the attacks across in San Diego. There was the synagogue in Texas where the rabbi was held hostage all day, and now we've got this. We had the college campuses the last couple of years, and what's been happening there, and helping to support. I spend a lot of time, particularly not this most recent school year, but the school year before, really working with our Hillels on our campuses and the campus administrations, trying to get them to take things seriously. This past year was a lot better. So that was
Well,
super
that's interesting
important.
to hear because the Gaza situation and the hostages has
It's
certainly
still rough, but
inflamed everything.
yes, no
Yes.
question. But I'll give the college administrations credit. Like when in the spring of 24, when we had the long running encampment at Hopkins and at Goucher, I think the administrations there were caught off guard. Like the encampment sprouted up and it was there and it became entrenched and they didn't know how to deal with it in a way that wasn't going to create terrible scenes on television like we saw at Columbia or UCLA. And we didn't, no one wanted that. But this
I
year,
was on Towson on a day when Dr. Ginsburg was getting introduced, and there was a protest, and all the cameras were there, and
yeah,
everyone was on edge about, to your point, the
yeah, Towson
possibilities of a
never like
combustible situation, correct?
sure,
Yeah.
but you got to just act quickly and decisively. So like this spring when there was an effort to restart an encampment at Hopkins, like the law enforcement at Hopkins, it started like the group came out at 5 a.m. By 6 a.m., the Hopkins law enforcement had removed it and had yanked down the tent when the people wouldn't do it. And then when they came back, they took it down again. They're like, don't let it get started. And they've done a good job of protecting the Jewish students and faculty and respecting their space and respecting the First Amendment rights of everybody, but saying there's a time and a place and a manner for protests. Like you can't be disruptive of kids learning. You can't make it threatening to walk across central areas of the campus if you're Jewish. And they've addressed that a lot better. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but part of our effort is to advocate there in a lot of ways. And and ultimately the only way we're going to get to it is by building deeper relationships and educating people about hate. One of the programs I'm proudest of that we work with, that's part of our portfolio, is the Elijah Cummings Youth Program in Israel, which is a 2-year fellowship in which a dozen students, mostly students of color, who either attend school or go to school in Elijah's original congressional district, are picked. They spend 2 years learning together. The summer between their junior and senior year, they spend a month in Israel. We work with them to build relationships with other Jewish students, and it's about building Black Jewish relations. It was one of the most important things that Elijah Cummings said it all the time. One of the most important things he did. He devoted himself to the program. When he was alive, every student was interviewed by him. He put his like speaking honorary or went to support the program. This was one of his crowning achievements was to build out a cohort of now over several hundred kids who have been through the program in over 25 years who are proud graduates of the fellowship and bring forth an understanding of the importance of building relationships with communities and being ambassadors to the world.
So I say, what is the Baltimore Jewish Council? Like, we're evolving. There's always
Yeah,
something, always something different and that
totally.
you're
Yep.
trying to do. And Howard Libit is our guest. We're going to get to some baseball in a minute here. The topic was anti-Semitism, and also the topic is just free speech and activism and what's right and wrong in this country. And I think we can all agree locking up students and threatening students and throwing them out of the country, no matter who they are or what their background, their ethnicity, what their beliefs are, what's going on here is mortifying on lots and lots of levels. And it's reached to your point, the extremes across all areas that need to be tamped down by what we're saying, what we're allowing, what we're doing.
I mean, speaking to you were talking about at the beginning about the Latino communities of East Baltimore, having to hide in their homes because of what's going on. This or in May was the annual Baltimore Immigration Summit, and we've been, proudly been a sponsor of that for years because, the Jewish community, we were immigrants once too, as we were coming over from either after the Holocaust or earlier from Eastern Europe, and that's part of all of our shared experiences. And going to this most recent summit and hearing the stories of what's happening across our communities of more recent immigrants was, I don't know if the right word's terrifying or profoundly disturbing, and to hear the fear that people are living in, super worrisome because people are coming here just to make a better lives for themselves and their children. And we need to find ways to support that.
Yeah, I was in Orlando, Florida. My brother lives in Orlando. My brother was born in Venezuela. My half brother, he's been here quarter of a century. He's a citizen. He and his wife own businesses. They have children in college in Florida. Um, and I went down just for a day to Epcot, goof around, and I didn't even, I had Uber drivers, like three Uber drivers. All three Uber drivers are Venezuelan, and my brother basically said the city of Kissimmee is all Venezuelan. And I mean, the girl that checked me into the hotel, she was Venezuelan. Everybody's Venezuelan, and I'm Venezuelan. So I begin to, I tell them I'm from Maracaibo, and they tell me I'm crazy because everybody from Maracaibo was crazy, and
Yeah.
they has a reputation of being
Huh.
bohemian or something. Also, good crabs too. Lake Maracaibo is where a lot of crab comes from. So, but I had a man Uber me, and he was older than me. I'm 56. I would say he's late 60s, between 65 and 70. And he was driving me, and his English was good. He said he was from Caracas. I asked him how long he'd been here. He said he got here in 2016, 15, 16. He's been here 10 years. And he looked at me in the rear view mirror because he's talking to me as he's driving. And he said to me, "We are not migrant people. I left my home at 55 years of age." And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's my age." And he said, "Chavez came and took everything and threatened everyone. And he said, now I'm here and Trump's doing the exact same thing. And I can't express to people that, do you think it was never my dream to come to America. I was 55 years old living my life, and our government got overtaken and everything was taken from us. That's why I'm here driving you in an Uber."
I've heard that story. You hear that story all over the world. I mean, I'll give you a parallel example that when many years, generation ago, when Israel was founded, there were thriving Jewish communities all across many of the Arab countries in the Middle East, and in most cases, all of the Jews were either jailed or told to leave. And I mean, you have changes in government like that make it inhospitable for certain people, and we all have to have a home to go to.
Yeah, America, beacon of light, shining light, the whole deal. Howard Libit is
Yeah.
here. I'm getting upset.
I'm
Baltimore,
sorry, we're getting heavy.
that's
It's
all right.
a
It's
heavy
what we
talk.
do
Yeah.
around here. Baltimore Jewish
Yes.
Council. What is the Associated? Fill everybody this.
So
I
so
want to
the
educate
Associated is
people
the
while we
yeah.
do this, and then we're going to talk baseball, and that's good. It's going to it's not going to be worse, but it's going to be pretty bad. Although they've won a bunch lately.
They've won
So,
a bunch. Yeah. I mean, we're feeling a little
if I
better
say
about
Tony
it, but
Mansolino, you
yeah.
start smiling all of a sudden. So,
So
yeah.
the Associated is the broader Jewish Federation of Baltimore. It does the fundraising across the agencies. So like there are member partner agencies of the Associated. We're one of them, the Baltimore Jewish Council. The two JCCs are, the Jewish Museum is. The Pearlstone Center, the Environmental Retreat Center up in Reisterstown. It's a beautiful place to go visit. Chi, which does a lot of housing work to kind of keep Northwest Baltimore thriving. Jewish Community Services, which provides critical services to everything from Holocaust survivors to people with disabilities to just people who need help, not just Jewish, open to all. So there's a bunch of and the good news of the way the associated structure works, which is a rarity among Jewish communities, is the associated handles the fundraising and then distributes allocations to all the member agencies. So I don't have to go out and fundraise. I don't have to have a development team on my staff. I'm able to do the work, which is, means, my peers in other communities, half their time or more is spent raising money. I don't have that distraction, which means we can be more effective than ever, and more efficient than ever.
How can people help? What can they do for you at the Baltimore Jewish Council?
So, well, the Associated would kill me if I didn't say, first of all, you could give to the campaign. The campaign ends June 30th. If you haven't yet made your pledge,
Hurry.
feel free. But more importantly, maybe not more importantly, but just as important, stand up, show up. If you see an opportunity to stand not just with the Jewish community, with some other community that's facing hate, stand with them. Don't allow it. If you hear it, if you see it, say that's not right. Don't jump in and tell when someone's telling the jokes that you think sound offensive, call them out on it. And make sure that if that your neighbors feel supported. I think most people don't want to be don't want to be anti-Semitic or don't want to be anti whatever group. And I recognize much of the anti-Semitism or anti-Black hatred or whatever is done not out of hate but ignorance. So learn and get better, because we all want to just create a place where we all want to be in partnership, in community together.
I always say travel a little bit. Just travel a little bit.
Super. Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Mark
Absolutely.
Twain, you gave me that, right? Baseball, I don't know. Where do you want to go with this? You want to go with Mike Elias for $100 or Brandon Hyde for 200, or
I,
you want to go
I don't
David
know.
Rubenstein for 500? Where do you want to go?
I still feel bad about Brandon Hyde. Like, he wasn't out there, not driving the runner in from second with nobody out, right?
He didn't even pick the groceries.
I mean,
He didn't operate on all these guys' arms.
yeah, right. I mean, it's how do you what can your expectations be when, three-quarters of your starting rotation doesn't start, is injured within the first month?
And Rutschman's hitting a buck 88.
He started hitting the last few days.
Thank God. I mean,
My daughter has him on her fantasy baseball team, so she's feeling good the last few days about that.
well, I'm rooting for all of them because I'm rooting for all of us, but it certainly was a lot more fun the last 2 years than whatever the last 8 weeks has been. Um, I
Oh yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, what do you judge? What do you judge a Michael Elias on? The 2 years where there's been great success, or this first 2 months of this season where things have slid? I mean, and I haven't seen it. Like Corbin Burns, what's the verdict on his arm from the other day where he got hurt? I haven't heard
Well, the verdict is Arizona owes him $230 million. So that's
well, yes.
that's
Is he?
that at the beginning and the
I
end.
didn't
That's
hear
it.
I didn't hear the result. I saw him come off. I was happened to be watching that game and saw him come off the mound hurt.
This is
And
like
I hadn't
asking
heard,
about
is
my
he out for?
ex-girlfriend. It's not here anymore. I can't do it, Howard. I mean, not my money. I mean, you know what I'm worried about? Who the opening day starter next year is going to be, and I'm worried about who's picking the groceries now. And you mentioned Elias. I think he's great at scouting. I don't think he's been great at identifying major league talent or trades. The Tyler O'Neill thing's been bad. The Gibson thing was bad. Shigano, fine. That's good. Need more of that. But in a general sense, the notion that these young players have to perform. Westbrook's got to get back. He's got to hit. The Mayo, Kerstad, these guys, 4, 5, 6 of these guys that are going to be the lineup need to blossom and be the lineup, and they need to be very, very deft and shrewd with what they're doing the next 8 weeks in regard to deals and what they're really solidifying for next year, because I don't know that they're going to buy pitching. I don't know that it's even good for them to buy pitching.
But now that Kittredge is healthy again, Kittredge looks like a pretty good find, pretty good signing, right?
I'm good with all of that. I'm still a 5 starter guy.
Yeah,
And even if Grayson Rodriguez, Bradish is trending in the direction of being able to come back later on this year. Eflin won't be here next year, right? Sagano would have to be under contract. I'm interested in the maneuverings they're going because once you're 18 games under 500, you can go battle and the young players and seeing the development of all of that. But I do think there's going to be some dealing in 6, 7 weeks here that could help fortify and make them better next year.
Oh,
And
right. Some of those guys on contracts that are going to be expiring or whatever. Do you have an extra outfielder? Does Mullins go to a contender? I'd hate to see him go, but like,
well,
does
we said
Mullins?
that about Mancini, right? And Lopez a couple years ago. Like those were good deals that were made.
Yeah. Although I did Lopez. I heard Lopez just got cut again, didn't he?
Well, right.
We got stuff for him at the time, though. Yes.
We got Kate Povich and we got
Yeah,
Yennier
yeah, yeah.
Cano, that, and we got Lopez back if we wanted him for 5 minutes. Remember that?
Yeah, he didn't. He did not. He panned out as about as well as the starter we picked up again this earlier this season.
In the end, for this to work, Rutschman, Henderson, Holiday, Westberg, and Kalser, right? And then throw Kerstad and Mayo in the side pocket, and then there's Basayo and those people coming in. As Buck would say, those are your pile divers. It's not Loriano. It's not, it's none of that. It's who's going to be
And
here.
someone like Urias is a great piece to have to help. But like between Urias and Mateo, like what do you is one of those guys tradable? I don't know.
Oh boy. Howard Libit is here. He's still loving the Orioles. He still has his bobble. What's your favorite bobblehead? You have 100 of them up there. Which the one you love the most?
I there's a Steve Pierce one that's kind of fun.
Okay. All
Remember
right.
Steve?
You're for the underdog. You're for the pinch hitter.
Yeah,
Everybody loves Steve Pierce.
he was fun guy to have around for a bit.
I'm a guy that loved Chico Simone and Tom Chopay and Kiko Garcia. I mean, I was a Gary Renicky guy, although he was a better player than them. But I've never was never a front runner. I was never a big Brooks fan in the '70s because all my friends wore Brooks jerseys, and I was like, maybe I'm going to be a Lee May guy. That's kind of the way
No,
I was, Howard. So.
there you go. I can appreciate that.
I'm an underdog guy. Howard Libit is here. He is with the Baltimore Jewish Council, and we've been discussing anti-Semitism amongst a whole bunch of things. They do government relations, Holocaust remembrance, Israel advocacy and education, community relations, leadership development, security, and the very important and aforementioned, I appreciate you educating me, the Elijah Cummings Youth Program. You can learn more about what they do at baltjc.org, and you can find Howard anywhere out at a baseball game. You guys still go to a lot of games, right?
So I've had a Sunday season ticket package that started with just 2 tickets before my kids were born, then expanded to 3, and then is now 4. And we go virtually every Sunday.
How old are your
The
kids?
4 of us. I have a kid who just finished his freshman year of college, and my other one's finishing up her junior year in high school.
So this is the thing, what I would say with baseball. It's such a family thing, right? Like in your
Totally.
family, you're like, this is what we do once we go to
My,
baseball
my
games.
my my daughter is sometimes we would think of her as the biggest baseball fan, where she'll like tell us, hey, let's have dinner ready at 6:35 so we could sit on the couch and watch the first pitch together while we
That's
eat
when
food.
you know you're doing a good job of
Yeah,
parenting, right?
exactly. She's the one in my who joined my college friends fantasy league this year because we had an extra opening, and
Well, I hope
she's in
she has
second she's
Raleigh,
in
not
second
Rutschman.
place.
There's a little West Coast
She
humor
has
for you
she had
there, right?
She has Rushman and Burns. So one let's hope they can both pick it up.
Yeah, let's hope we all pick it up here.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking a little time out here during your busy schedule to discuss this important issue. And it was brought up on my social media, and I wanted to bring it to the forefront, and I'm glad I did. And
Thank you so much for
let's
giving me the
end all
time to
this
talk
hate,
about it.
man.
Appreciate
I
the
mean,
support. Yep.
like, love is so much more rewarding and so much easier to give and receive. You know what I mean? Hatred is such a heavy burden. I mean, it
You
really
know,
is. Martin Luther King hit that right, right? It's just too heavy a burden.
what you can't see over here on in my window is this beautiful metal cutout that's a quote from Martin Luther King that says, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear." I look at that quote every day.
Uh, and I just gave it to you. There it is, right? I
There
mean,
it is.
perfect, right? We can drop
Yes.
the ball on that, but not the bat or the gloves. Make sure they got that together, and certainly not the arms. Howard Libit is with the Baltimore Jewish Council. He is my friend. I'm always very appreciative you come on, talk a little baseball here, and maybe we'll rub elbows at Camden Yards at some point,
Maybe
right?
I'll have to stop by one of those crab cake tours. Snaps.
Comes with beer and orange crushes. It's a state drink. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I got
and it
you.
is a
Thank
weekend.
you.
I am
All right.
Nestor. We are WNST AM 1570. It's House in Baltimore. We never stop talking. Baltimore positive and important things.